Eli Grant stood on the shining platform of the Aurelian Palace, staring at the alien crowd gathered before him. The golden towers of the capital city rose behind him, glowing under twin suns. Flags from across the galaxy fluttered in the wind, and above, giant space cruisers hovered silently like silver birds in the sky. Today was supposed to be a simple mission. Eli, a young diplomat from Earth, had been chosen to represent humanity at the 500th Galactic Unity celebration. He wore a dark blue suit, freshly pressed, and a nervous smile. His job was to attend the ceremony, shake hands, say kind words, and return home. But now, things had changed. "By accepting the sacred cup," said the Grand Speaker, a tall alien in long robes, "the human representative has agreed to the ritual of Starbond." Eli blinked. Wait. What ritual? The crowd cheered. Trumpets made of crystal horns played a soft melody. The Grand Speaker smiled at him kindly. "It is ancient law, Ambassador Grant. The one who accepts the Unity Cup must spend one night in ceremonial peace with each of the 5 Aurelian princesses." Eli almost dropped the cup. "Excuse me?" The crowd gasped and laughed lightly. The Aurelians were tall, elegant beings with skin that shimmered like starlight and eyes that glowed softly in different colors. The 5 royal sisters stood in a perfect line behind the emperor's throne. Each looked different, strong, smart, playful, quiet, and proud, but all were watching Eli now. The emperor, a noble-looking figure in silver robes, stood and raised his hand. "Human Eli," he said in a deep voice, "your planet is new to our ancient ways. You may not know our traditions, but the Unity Cup is sacred. It is law. And the ritual of Starbond is not about romance or power. It is about understanding, about peace." Eli cleared his throat. "And if I don't do this ritual?" The emperor's voice grew serious. "Then the ancient pact will break. Our empire will see it as rejection. Old enemies may rise again. A war could begin." "A war?" Eli's heart began to pound. He looked at the 5 sisters again. Each had a different expression. The first, a tall warrior with silver armor, crossed her arms. The second, wearing a long robe and glasses, tilted her head, curious. The third grinned like she was enjoying a private joke. The fourth looked calm, almost distant. And the fifth, the oldest, watched him with a cold, sharp gaze. Eli took a deep breath. He had trained for years in alien cultures and diplomacy. He had studied law, history, and languages. He had dreamed of making peace, not war. If this was the way to keep the galaxy safe, he had to try. "I accept the ritual," Eli said, holding the cup high. "I will honor your customs. I will spend one night with each sister." The crowd exploded with cheers. Music played. Lights flashed in the sky like fireworks. The emperor nodded. "You are brave, human. Tonight, your first night will begin with Princess Kalara, the shield of the empire." The warrior sister stepped forward. Her armor gleamed gold and black. A scar ran down her right cheek. She looked strong and proud. "I will not go easy on you, human," she said. Her voice was sharp but not unkind. "Come with me." Eli followed her through long halls and glowing doors. They walked in silence until they reached a wide room with walls made of crystal. It was not a bedroom, it was a training hall. "You won't fight me, will you?" Eli asked nervously. Kalara smirked. "Not with weapons, but I must know your heart, your courage. Sit." They sat on the floor facing each other. Around them, the walls changed color, showing images of past battles, of heroes and warriors, from different planets. "I am not here to impress you," Eli said. "I'm just trying to keep the peace." "That is exactly what you must impress me with," Kalara replied. "Tell me, what do humans fight for?" Eli thought for a moment. "Not for power, not always. Sometimes We fight for each other, for family, for love, for hope. Kalara narrowed her eyes. Words are easy, but peace is hard. In battle, we learn the truth. Let's test your truth. She stood and walked to a small table. On it were 2 metal circles. She tossed one to him. It lit up when he touched it. Battle discs, she said. We don't hurt each other, but we learn. Touch my mark 3 times, and you win. Eli had never trained with these, but he nodded. They began. Lights flashed. The discs danced in, their hands guided by small controls. It was fast and tricky. Kalara moved with perfect skill. Eli stumbled at first, but then began to learn her rhythm. He didn't try to win. He tried to understand. He let her strike first. He watched her balance. He smiled when she tricked him. And once, he dodged just right and touched her mark. Kalara stopped. She looked at him, surprised. You are not trying to win, she said. No, Eli replied, breathing hard. I'm trying to learn. From you. She was quiet for a long time. Then she laughed, a short, honest sound. You're strange, she said. But I think I understand why the stars chose you. The lights dimmed. The crystal walls turned soft blue. It was the Aurelian sign for peace. You passed, human, she said. The night is done. You may rest. Eli smiled, tired but proud. 1 sister down. Kalara walked him to the guest quarters. Before leaving, she turned and said, Do not let the others break you. They will test your soul, not your strength. And with that, she was gone. Eli sat on the edge of his glowing bed, staring out. The window at the stars, 5 nights, 5 sisters, 1 fragile piece. He whispered to himself, What did I just get myself into? And far away, the next sister watched his image on a glowing screen. She smiled softly. Eli Grant woke up to the soft hum of music playing from the walls. His bed glowed gently beneath him, and a warm breeze came in through the open window of the guest chamber. Outside, the twin suns of the Aurelian Empire were rising. One was golden, the other pale blue. Today would be his 2nd night in the ritual of Starbond. The first night, with Princess Kalara, the warrior sister, had gone better than he expected. She had challenged him to a test of honor, and he had passed. Now, it was time to meet the 2nd sister, Princess Linavi, the scholar. He didn't know what to expect, but one thing was clear. Each sister had her own way of testing him, and he had to succeed, or the peace between Earth and the Aurelian Empire would break. A silver hovercraft waited outside the palace. A tall servant with glowing eyes greeted him. Ambassador Grant, the servant said, bowing politely. Princess Linavi awaits you aboard the Starshade Library, in orbit around the memory star. Eli stepped into the craft. It rose smoothly into the sky, leaving the palace behind. He looked down at the sparkling capital world below, then up at the black sky where stars blinked like tiny eyes. The journey took only minutes. The Starshade Library appeared before him, a massive floating station shaped like a flower, its petals glowing with soft lights. It orbited a giant red star that shimmered like an ancient fire. Eli entered the main chamber. Shelves curved in every direction. Books, scrolls, and crystal data cubes floated gently in the air. It was quiet, peaceful, endless. And in the center sat Princess Linavi. She was tall and graceful, with long violet robes and silver hair braided in a circle. She wore thin glasses that glowed slightly, and her skin shone with a calm blue light. Welcome, human, she said without looking up from her book. I hope you like silence. I've never minded it, Eli replied, stepping forward carefully. She looked at him with calm eyes. Then you may stay. Eli smiled. What is tonight's test? She blinked slowly. We will read. We will talk. We will think. That is enough. Eli followed her through the glowing halls of the library. Lenavi showed him old Aurelian scrolls, books written by alien poets, and even one dusty volume that seemed to be written in ancient Earth Latin. You keep human books here? He asked. Lenavi nodded. Your planet is young, but your thoughts are interesting. You dream with strong hearts. They reached a round room filled with floating chairs. Lenavi handed him a glowing crystal cube. Place this near your head, she instructed. It will read to you, in your language. Eli sat and listened as a soft voice from the cube read an Aurelian tale of a traveler who got lost among stars and found peace in forgotten stories. Beautiful, Eli whispered. Lenavi glanced at him. You listen well. They spent hours, reading, sharing ideas, and comparing stories from Earth and the Empire. Lenavi asked questions. Eli answered carefully. Then Eli asked questions too, about her culture, her people, and her own dreams. At first, Lenavi was quiet, but slowly she opened up. I used to dream of flying, she said, but I chose books instead of ships. I thought knowledge could take me further. It does, Eli said gently. Ships move the body, stories move the soul. Lenavi stared at him. For the first time she smiled, just a little. But suddenly, the lights flickered. An alarm began to ring. Soft and musical, but clear. What is that? Eli asked. Lenavi stood quickly. A power flux. The memory chamber is overheating. Memory chamber? He repeated. She nodded. It holds our oldest stories. If it fails, we may lose centuries of knowledge. Without waiting, Eli followed her to the control room. A screen showed blinking red symbols. This code is too old, Lenavi said, worried. Even I don't understand all of it. Eli stared at the console. It reminded him of old Earth tech. May I try? He asked. Lenavi hesitated. It's dangerous. One wrong command. I'll be careful, he promised. He took a deep breath and looked at the buttons, symbols, and numbers. He didn't know Aurelian code, but he recognized patterns, lines of logic. He found a string that looked like a power loop and rerouted it. Then he reduced the energy load to the cooling fans. The alarm stopped. The lights returned to normal. Lenavi blinked. You fixed it? I guessed. Kind of, Eli said, smiling nervously. Sometimes humans guess well. Lenavi looked at him for a long time. You saved our memories, she said softly. I just didn't want all those beautiful stories to be lost, he replied. She walked to a nearby shelf and pulled out a small blue book. She handed it to him. A gift, she said. This book is called The Star That Listens. It's about someone like you. Eli turned the pages. The words were in Aurelian, but somehow he understood them. It's written with star script, Lenavi explained. It changes to match the reader's heart. Eli felt a strange warmth in his chest. This was not just a book. It was trust. That night, Lenavi invited him to a quiet study room. They drank tea made from glowing flowers and listened to soft music made of chimes. You have passed, human, she said at last. You were patient, you respected silence, and you saved what we could not replace. Eli bowed his head. I'm honored. Before he left, Lenavi said one more thing. Some believe that war is louder than peace, but I believe silence can be louder than both. If you know how to listen. Eli smiled. Then I'll keep listening. The hovercraft took him back to the palace. As it flew across the stars, Eli opened the book again and read a line that shimmered in gold. Even in the quiet, a true voice can be heard across galaxies. He closed the book and looked out the window, 2 nights down. 3. More to go, and somewhere far below, the third sister, Princess Velza, was preparing her games with a very wide smile. The air was filled with color. Floating lights danced in the sky like butterflies. Music played from the flowers themselves, each note rising when someone walked past. A gentle breeze carried the smell of sweet fruit and laughter. It was nothing, like the silent library from the night before. This was Princess Velza's world, the third sister of the Aurelian Empire. She was the youngest, the playful one. Known for mischief, tricks, and endless games, Eli had been warned. She will not test your strength, Kalara had said. She will not test your silence, Linavi had added, but she will test your patience. Eli smiled as he walked across, a floating bridge made of light. He had already survived a warrior's arena and a scholar's library. Now it was time to face a game master. Suddenly, bubbles filled the air, thousands of them, floating all around him. A voice came from nowhere, and everywhere at once. It was cheerful, like a child hiding behind a curtain. "Guess which bubble holds your path, human?" Eli looked around. All the bubbles were the same size. They shimmered with rainbow colors. He reached out to one near his face. "Wrong!" Velza's voice laughed. The bubble popped, and a tiny cloud of glitter sprayed into the air. Eli sneezed. He tried another. Still wrong. This time, the bubble burst into a shower of flower petals. Eli sighed. "I'm not very good at guessing." One more bubble floated in front of him. It was smaller than the others and quieter. He touched it gently. The bubble didn't pop. It opened. Inside was a glowing path made of stars. It hovered in front of him, leading into a forest of shining trees. "Very good," Velza's voice said. "Sometimes the right choice is the one no one notices." Eli followed the path. The trees whispered as he walked by, giggling like they knew secrets. Lights blinked between the branches and shapes moved just out of sight. Finally, he reached a clearing. There she was, Princess Velza. She sat on a floating swing made of ribbons, wearing a dress that changed color with her laughter. Her hair sparkled like starlight, and her eyes glowed bright green. "Well, well, well," she said, grinning. "The human arrives." Eli bowed politely. "I'm here for the third night of the ritual." She jumped off the swing and landed, lightly in front of him. "Boring words. Let's play a game instead." "What kind of game?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "A game of questions," she said, twirling in place. 3 for you, 3 for me. If either of us lies or refuses to answer, we lose." Eli smiled. "All right, I'll play." Velza clapped her hands. "Good, I'll go first." She leaned close and asked, "What is something you regret, but never say out loud?" Eli paused. The question surprised him. "I regret leaving Earth without saying goodbye to my little brother," he said softly. "He gave me a drawing the night before. I left it behind." Velza blinked. "That's honest. Your turn." Eli nodded. "Why do you hide your real feelings behind jokes?" Velza's smile faded for a second. "Because people expect me to be happy. If I act serious, they worry." Eli didn't speak. He just nodded, in understanding. "Okay," Velza said, bouncing back. "My second question. What scares you the most?" Eli thought. "Not being enough. For my people. For this mission. For myself." Velza was quiet again. He asked, "Why do you play games? With people instead of talking to them?" She looked away. "Because if I lose a game, I can laugh. But if I say something real and it's rejected, it hurts more." Eli said nothing. He respected her answer. Velza asked her third and final question. "What do you want, truly want, from this ritual?" Eli took a deep breath. "I want peace, real peace. Not just a signature or a promise. I want to understand your people, and for you to understand mine." She nodded slowly. Then Eli asked his last question. Do you trust me? Velza looked at him. The forest lights faded. The music grew quiet. Finally, she said, Yes, I think I do. The trees around them burst into soft light. Ribbons flew into the air and the ground turned into a glowing circle. You win, Velza said. I didn't know it was a contest, Eli replied. It always is, she grinned. But you didn't play to win. You played to understand. That's what made you win. A soft bell rang in the air. The night was complete. Velza took off one of her earrings, a small silver star, and handed it to him. A charm for truth, she said. You earned it. Eli placed it in his pocket carefully. Thank you. As he turned to leave, Velza called out, Hey, human! He looked back. Don't lose the next 2 rounds. The next sister doesn't play games. I'll remember, he said. The ride back to the palace was quiet. Eli sat with the star charm in his hand, thinking of Velza's words. So far, each night had tested a different part of him. Kalara had tested his courage. Linavi had tested his wisdom. Velza had tested his heart. And now, 2 more sisters waited. One of them didn't speak at all, and the other was the future empress. Eli looked out at the stars. 3 nights complete, 3 chances left to save peace in the galaxy. The sky was quiet as Eli Grant stepped into the small shuttle that would take him to his 4th night of the ritual of Starbond. This time, there was no music, no laughter, no books, no games, only silence. Where are we going? Eli asked the pilot, a soft-spoken android. The pilot replied, To the moon of Nerona beneath the waters. The silent sister waits. Eli nodded. He had heard of Princess Orani, the 4th sister. She never spoke. Some said she couldn't. Others said she simply chose not to. But all agreed on one thing. Her heart spoke louder than words. As the shuttle descended into the ocean world of Nerona, the stars faded behind layers of glowing blue water. Sea creatures glided past the windows, giant ones with fins like sails, small ones that flickered like fireflies. At last, the shuttle docked at a glowing underwater palace made of clear glass and shining coral. It looked like it had grown from the sea itself. Eli stepped out. No one greeted him. He walked alone through glowing halls, his footsteps soft on the smooth floor. All around him, fish swam through tubes of water that ran along the walls. Light pulsed with the rhythm of the ocean. At the center of the palace was a large dome. He entered. Princess Orani was waiting. She stood barefoot in a pool of water that glowed with a soft silver light. Her hair floated around her like seaweed, and her long robe moved gently with the currents. Her skin shimmered with soft pearl colors, and her eyes glowed a peaceful green. Eli bowed. Princess Orani, I'm honored to meet you. She said nothing. She only tilted her head slightly, her eyes calm and gentle. Eli stood awkwardly for a moment. I don't know what kind of test this will be, but I'm ready. She didn't speak. Instead, she raised one hand and pointed to the pool. Then, slowly, she stepped backward into the water until only her head remained above the surface. Eli understood. She was inviting him to join her. He removed his shoes and stepped in. The water was warm and soft, like silk. But as soon as he was waist-deep, the pool began to glow brighter. Symbols formed on the water's surface, lines and shapes that moved like waves. Eli looked at Orani. She moved her hand slowly through the water and the symbols changed. She was speaking, not with words, but with movement and light. It was a language, a dance. Eli watched carefully. Each hand motion, each step in the water made new shapes and colors. He tried to copy her movements, but his shapes were clumsy and strange. Orani smiled gently and repeated the motion slower. Eli tried again. This time, the water responded. A blue spiral formed between them. She stepped closer and made another gesture. A golden line appeared like a bridge between them. Eli followed. Slowly, the two of them began to dance. Not with music, but with meaning. He realized what she was teaching him. Emotions, thoughts, memories, all shared through this silent water dance. He showed her curiosity. She replied with patience. He sent a shape for earth. She sent back one for ocean. He drew a circle for peace. She returned a soft wave for understanding. Hours passed, though it didn't feel like it. Eli lost track of time. It was as if he were dreaming with his eyes open. Finally, Orani stepped out of the pool. She walked across the smooth floor to a large crystal shell on a pedestal. She touched it, and it opened. Inside was a glowing orb of light, floating gently. She brought it to Eli and placed it in his hands. He held it carefully. It was warm and pulsed with light, like a gentle heartbeat. She pointed to his chest, then to the orb, and then to the sky. Eli understood. This was a gift, not just an object, but a message. A part of her people's spirit, a symbol of trust. He bowed deeply. "Thank you. I'll carry this always." Orani stepped forward, placed her hand on his shoulder, and smiled. Then she did something unexpected. She raised her hand, slowly formed a small shape in the air, 3 stars in a circle, and looked into his eyes. Eli blinked. "That's the symbol for hope, isn't it?" She nodded. And then softly, for the first and only time, she spoke. "Hope," she whispered. It was the quietest sound he had ever heard. But it filled the room like a sunrise. The lights in the water changed to gold. The dome glowed. The sea creatures outside gathered near the windows, floating in stillness, as if listening. The ritual of the 4th night was complete. Eli dried off and changed into fresh robes provided for him. Before leaving, he turned back to see Orani standing in the pool again, her eyes calm and kind. He placed his hand on the glass wall and gave her the star circle symbol in return. She smiled and vanished beneath the water. The shuttle carried him back to the palace, rising through the layers of the ocean. The orb she gave him sat in his lap, glowing softly like a tiny sun. As he stepped back into his guest room, he placed the orb beside the silver earring from Velza, the book from Linavi, and the battle disc from Kailara. Each gift, a memory. Each night, a step closer to peace. Only one sister remained, Princess Serena, the heir, the empress-to-be. The final test would be the hardest, and Eli would need everything he had learned so far. Courage, patience, honesty, and silence. The fate of 2 worlds depended on what happened next. Eli Grant stood at the highest tower of the palace, staring at the stars. 4 nights had passed. 4 sisters. 4 tests. He felt tired, but not weak. In each night, he had learned something new, not just about the Aurelian Empire, but about himself. Now, one last night remained. Tonight, he would meet Princess Serena, the eldest sister, the future empress. People whispered many things about her. She is wise, but cold. She never shows emotion. She will rule with strength, not kindness. But Eli knew better than to trust whispers. He would meet her face to face and decide for himself. A royal guard arrived in silence and led him to the Chamber of Judgment, a large open hall at the heart of the palace. There were no lights, no music, no soft colors like in the other sisters' domains, only stillness. At the far end of the room stood Princess Serena. She wore a long black and gold robe, and her hair was braided in the style of ancient Aurelian rulers. Her eyes glowed silver, and her expression was unreadable. "Ambassador Eli Grant," she said, her voice calm and clear. "You've completed 4 nights. Now you stand before the heir to the throne." Eli bowed. "I'm honored to meet you, Princess Serena." "There will be no dance," she said. "No riddles, no gifts. Only truth." "I understand." "For your final test," she said, walking toward him, "you must stand before the Galactic Assembly and speak." Eli blinked. "Tonight?" She nodded. "In 1 hour." Eli's heart pounded. The Galactic Assembly was the highest council in the known universe, leaders from hundreds of worlds watching, listening, judging. "You will stand alone," Serena continued. "You will speak for Earth. You will answer their questions. You will show them who we are making peace with." Eli looked into her eyes. "Is this your test?" "Yes," she said simply. "A ruler must see beyond feelings, beyond games. I must know if Earth has chosen wisely. I must know if you are ready." Eli nodded. "Then I will do my best." An hour later, Eli stood on a glowing platform in the center of the Hall of Unity. The Galactic Assembly stretched out before him, rows upon rows of alien leaders, each seated in their own floating pod. The hall was enormous. Every sound echoed. Princess Serena stood behind him, silent as stone. A bell rang, a voice spoke through the chamber. "Ambassador Eli Grant of Earth, you may begin." Eli took a breath. Then he began to speak. "Honored leaders," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I come from a small blue world with big hopes. Our people are new to the galaxy. We are still learning, still growing, but we believe in peace." The room was silent. "We don't have the power of the Aurelians. We don't have the knowledge of the Eldari or the speed of the Varnak ships. But we have something strong." He paused. "We have the will to understand others." A few heads turned. Some aliens leaned forward. "In the last 4 nights," Eli said, "I have shared time with the Aurelian sisters. I stood before a warrior and learned respect. I sat with a scholar and shared knowledge. I played with a trickster and learned truth. I danced with a silent soul and understood hope." He looked around the room. "These sisters are not symbols. They are not puzzles. They are people. Just like us." A murmur ran through the crowd. "We don't come to take. We don't come to rule. We come to build a better future. Together." He paused one last time, then finished. "Let this night be remembered, not for fear, not for war, but for the choice to listen." Silence filled the hall. Then, one by one, several alien pods began to light up in approval. Soft tones rang out, signaling agreement. Serena stepped forward. "The Assembly accepts the statement," she announced. "The ritual of Starbond is complete." The chamber erupted in soft applause, clapping from hands, wings, tentacles, and more. Eli stood still, almost in disbelief. It was over. He had passed. Later, back in the quiet of the royal gardens, Serena met him under a silver tree. "You spoke with honesty," she said, "and courage. You chose peace." "I just told the truth," Eli replied. "That is harder than it sounds," she said, almost smiling. She handed him a thin crystal ring. "What is this?" he asked. "A seal," she said. "It means Earth is now a trusted ally of the Empire." Eli slipped the ring on his finger. It adjusted perfectly. Serena looked at him carefully. "You changed something tonight. Not just a treaty, but hearts." Eli smiled. "I didn't do it alone. Your sisters taught me everything. And now," Serena said, "you have something to teach others." She turned and walked back toward the palace, but before disappearing, she said, "One night remains, not a test, a choice." "A choice?" Eli asked. She nodded. "You'll see." The stars above the palace shined brighter than usual, as if they, too, were waiting. Eli Grant stood alone in the royal gardens, where the trees glowed gently and the air smelled of night flowers. The ritual was finished. He had passed the tests. Of all 5 sisters, the treaty was saved. Earth was now a trusted part of the Galactic Union. So why was he still awake? He looked up at the sky and thought about each sister. Kalara had taught him strength without anger. Lenavi had shown him the quiet power of learning. Velza had reminded him that truth could come from laughter. Orani had spoken a single word that filled the galaxy: hope. And Serena, the future empress, had given him the hardest test of all, his voice before the stars. It should have been over. But Serena's words still echoed in his mind. One night remains. Not a test, a choice. Suddenly, soft footsteps came from behind him. Eli turned. All 5 sisters were standing there. Together, each wore a robe of her own color. Each carried something small and glowing. Kailara held a golden blade made of light. Lenavi held a book. Velza had a puzzle cube, spinning in her hands. Orani carried her glowing orb. Serena held nothing, but her eyes, calm and strong, said more than words. Eli bowed deeply. "I didn't expect all of you tonight," Kailara spoke first. "You completed our challenges with courage and honesty," Lenavi nodded. "You listened with more than ears," Velza twirled. "You played fair and laughed when you lost." Orani smiled quietly. Her orb pulsed gently in her hands. Then Serena stepped forward. "But now, we ask you something different." Eli looked at them. "What do you mean?" "This is the true, final night," Serena said. "It is not part of the old law. It is something new." Kalara placed her light blade on a stone nearby. "Each sister has chosen to give you her symbol, her gift." Velza handed over her spinning puzzle. "These gifts carry meaning, not just objects, but trust." Lenavi placed her book beside them. "They are yours, but with them comes a question." Orani placed her orb gently among the gifts. Serena looked Eli in the eyes. "The question is this: will you remain with us as a permanent bridge between Earth and the Empire, or will you return to your home and leave the rest to others?" Eli's heart beat faster. Remain? He hadn't thought about it. His mission was to represent Earth, keep the treaty safe, and return home. That was the plan. But the plan had changed, one night at a time. He looked down at the glowing gifts, then at each sister. He thought of his little brother back on Earth, of his friends, his home. But he also thought of the lessons he'd learned here, lessons no one else on Earth had. Eli took a slow breath. "If I stay, what would I do?" "You would be the first voice of Earth," Serena said. "An advisor, a friend, a builder of bridges between worlds. You would help train future envoys," Lenavi added, "and write the history you lived." "You could help others laugh again," Velza grinned. "Teach people to speak with the heart," Orani added softly. Kalara crossed her arms. "And keep the peace strong with honor." Eli felt something warm inside. They weren't asking him to stay as a guest. They were inviting him as a part of something bigger. He walked to the gifts. He touched each one. Then he smiled. "I came to save a treaty. I never expected to be changed by it." He turned to the sisters. "Yes, I'll stay." Velza cheered. Lenavi smiled. Orani gave a small nod of peace. Kalara placed a hand on his shoulder. Serena, at last, gave a rare and gentle smile. The glowing gifts rose into the air. Light from each one circled around Eli like stars. The palace trees began to sing, a melody made of wind and light. It was the sound of a new beginning. That night, a celebration was held in the grand hall. Not loud, not wild, but peaceful, joyful, full of soft music and light. Leaders from across the galaxy came to witness the end of the ritual and the start of something greater. Eli stood in the center, wearing a robe with Earth's symbol and the Aurelian star mark beside it. He was not just a guest anymore. He was a bridge between worlds. As the night grew deeper, he stepped out to the garden again, where it had all begun. Velza appeared beside him, tossing her puzzle cube in the air. "You did it," she said. "5 sisters and 1 galaxy, all in 6 nights. Not bad." Eli laughed. "Thanks. I couldn't have done it without you. Or your trick questions." She winked. "Any regrets?" Eli looked up at the stars. "No, just wonder." She leaned on the railing. "Then you chose well." Behind them, the others gathered. 5 sisters, 1 human. 6 nights that changed everything, and far above, the stars watched quietly as a new story began.